Good day, everyone. Welcome to our Think Big series brought to you by PSG today. Thank you for joining us today for what promises to be a highly entertaining 45 minutes or so. My name is Brett Lambert, and I head up PSG's Wealth Distribution Channel. As a leading financial services group, PSG has an extensive national footprint in South Africa and a presence in Namibia. We've been in operation since 1998, and we pride ourselves on providing a bigger picture approach to our clients' financial needs, from asset and wealth management to short-term insurance. We're an advice-led business backed by some of the best financial advisors around the country. The Think Big series is a collection of dialogues with highly valued speakers hosted by the award-winning financial journalist Bruce Whitfield. Each topic will address human truth issues which are causing South Africans anxiety in these uncertain times. The series aims to empower audiences with factual evidence to formulate their own opinions and manage their expectations on how various aspects of the current situation could unfold. Neither of our guests today need much introduction. In today's presentation, Bruce will be talking to Graeme Smith, a high-profile personality in the world of cricket. Graeme's love for cricket was nurtured in school, where he played for Kes. As a professional cricketer, he went on to break several records, including being the youngest ever national team captain at the age of 22, as well as being the most successful test captain in the history of the game with 53 test wins. After retirement as a player, Graeme has held various roles as an advisor, consultant, commentator, and cricket analyst in South Africa and abroad. Most recently, he was appointed as the first director of cricket at Cricket South Africa, where he continues to make a major impact through his leadership and experience. Today, our campaign social media hashtag is #ThinkBigPSG. The series is free, it's shareable, and it's open to anyone interested. Bruce and Graeme, thank you for joining us here today and giving up your time to be with us. We're looking forward to the interaction, and I'll now hand over to Bruce. Bruce, over to you. Thank you.
Brett, thank you very much. Graeme Smith, welcome to you. Nice to have you with us here as well on the Think Big series. It feels like an awfully long time ago that you were actually playing cricket, but it was, 2014 when you retired from the game, wasn't it? That's not so long ago. Just feels like a million years ago.
Yeah, time moves quickly, doesn't it, Bruce? And to Brett, thank you for the wonderful introduction. 2014, retired at 33, which is fairly young. I guess for a cricketer, but yeah, I think too many years of captaining, Bruce, took its toll.
Well, I mean, yeah, you were 22. I mean, in retrospect, were you too young when you took over?
If you ask me now, I'd probably say 100% yes. I mean, it's very difficult to analyze that when you're in the moment. You're driven. You want the position. If I think back now, I was constantly, dealing with the fear of the job, but then the motivation to be successful. I think that's something that, you grapple with for so many years, especially now, I'd say the initial 4 years, you're working your way through, you're really determined to be successful. You want to show everybody, you want to prove that you can handle it, that you can step up. And it took time for me to grow into the position and then I think settle. I think that's why, I polarized a lot of people in the first couple of years and the results were a little bit up and down.
Talk about results being up and down. I mean, the fact that South Africa has never won a Cricket World Cup, does it matter? I think it does.
Definitely. I mean, it's an iconic event and we've certainly had enough ability and talent as teams over the years to have won one. I played in a couple of them. I think the one that sits out for me was the 2009 T20 World Cup in England. We were by far the best team. We dominated and we lost to Pakistan in the semi-final and on a spinning wicket at Trent Bridge. And that was the one that I believe that we should have cruised to victory. So that one hurts a little bit. The other ones you can process, you can think about, you can have constructive reasons as to why you didn't maybe, weren't successful. But that one in 2009 certainly does hurt a little bit.
Not too many people get a second or a third chance at glory. I mean, as director of cricket, has this become your great ambition? I mean, what does a director of cricket even do in a world of chairmen and boards and chief executives and coaches and captains and players? What does director of cricket even mean?
Yeah, you're right. All these corporate analogies and positions. I'm certainly learning how they operate within cricket. But I guess I've got one of the most extensive jobs, and that's, creating a high-performing environment for both the men and women down the pipeline. Introduction of the game to youngsters, touch points, transformation, growing the game. It's a very cricket service is a very extensive part of what Cricket South Africa does. So a lot of that falls underneath me. Luckily, I've got a good team of people around me as well, because it's impossible, I think, for one man to manage entirely. I think when we jumped in December, cricket had fallen into really tough times from a performance on the field and I guess within the business side as well. So I found myself being pulled in a number of different directions, from commercial to cricket to the business as well. So it's been a really tough couple of months.
I've seen it described as cricket was in a mess when you joined in December 2019. I mean, would you care just to elaborate a little bit on what the mess was?
Look, I think in December it was very well documented, from suspension of certain high-profile positions in Cricket South Africa, forensic audits being done, and that's still on the go. A whole lot of months later, board issues, performance issues from our teams, sponsors putting Cricket South Africa to task, journalists being banned. I mean, where do you start? It was a giant mess, as you put it. I think the challenge was to try and get in. My job was more cricket focused at the time, but then you start having to repair a number of relationships, from sponsors to player bodies to fixing TV right deals, deals that were done in the past that haven't been paid for, and you can. And then trying to formulate a strategy to move forward as well. And before you know it, you make it through the summer, you trial and error, you rebuild some things, and then COVID hits, and you face the next phase of those challenges.
I mean, you're running a sport that essentially doesn't exist right now, because nobody can play the game. I mean, it's deeply frustrating, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been dealing with government now for an extensive period of time, and I think, from a sports perspective, medical has been a big part of our lives. We've got medical officers in place, physios, good thinkers about, the body and, getting the best out of it from a performance perspective. So we put a lot of extensive plans together with government on return to play, return to train. We've submitted a number of those, and we've been dealing with the ministry and the DG and the team there. And we've finally got that on a non-contact professional level. But, as you say, cricket is such an extensive sport. You think down to the private coaching, the clubs, the schools, the whole pipeline. And I guess, how we get that open is going to be a huge challenge. Opening up international travel so that, cricket in itself, broadcast rights are the major income for any sports body, in particular cricket. Home tours for us is how we generally earn the major part of our income. And at the moment, that's all on hold. So we're working with government to see, what the plans are. And yeah, it's challenging.
I suppose one of the great problems with cricket and COVID-19, and anybody who's ever been a bit of a bowler, and people used to lick the ball. That was a long time ago, but a bit of spit on the ball, give it a bit of a shine on whichever part of your anatomy is your favorite. It's those sorts of things that in a COVID world are suddenly unthinkable, aren't they?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I guess, we're testing the players so extensively. If you look at England now, test. Once you're in the bubble, generally everyone in there should be safe. So it's really the preparation of getting your players to that point. But the ICC has come out and banned certain, saliva. I think they've allowed sweat and other things that, and just watching the England test series, the ball was still swinging. But as a batter, I was happy if the ball didn't swing. So not too much of an issue from my own side. But, I think certainly one of the challenges that cricket has faced over the years has, certainly of late, is that competition between bat and ball and keeping that, at the forefront. So I think it's great when the ball does move around, and it's something that really needs to be looked at going forward. But again, I think it will put pressure on the medical protocols, getting into that bubble, how you look after players. Are they safe? Have you tested in there? And trying to stay as much as you can, on top of the situation. So these are all plans and costs that are now coming into our game that weren't there before.
We'll talk about the business of cricket in just a bit, but I mean, the women's team is scheduled, I don't know if they are going, but scheduled to fly to England in September. Again, I suppose it's a little bit touch and go, because that is, the UK is keen to do this, but South Africa may be a little bit reticent. What's your perspective on that?
No, Bruce, I mean, we've been engaging with the ECB for a period of time now for this women's tour. It's something we would love to get done. I think, I must commend the ECB, the money that they're investing on, even trying to get our ladies over there, looking to charter planes, then putting them into bio bubbles, an extensive amount of money that they'll be spending to get this tour underway. And I think that's a great sign for the women's game. I think it's, we want to encourage and get our women out at the forefront. They've had such success of late, and you've seen the growth in their stature, especially at the T20 World Cup now. We're meant to be hosting one in 2022, so we're excited about that. And it's one of my challenges as director of cricket is how we grow the women's environment now going forward and make it even more successful. I think the players there's a lot of talent now that's got a bit more experience, and how we give them access to people and cricket thinkers and more professional environment, I think is going to be a big part of the next 2 years. But yeah, so again, just getting back to that tour, is that we're working with government to open up and see if we can get some travel happening, even on a private charter.
I mean, and in a world where there's so little sport happening, I mean, the profile of women's cricket certainly could benefit a huge amount to have that live sporting activity and to have a team that seems very, very strong, very cohesive, very talented, very capable, perhaps flying the flag for us.
I mean, I think it's wonderful. I mean, everyone's been talking about the men's game, and when we get that going, I mean, we had the Solidarity Cup, which was great. It was a bit of critical thinking out of the box to get a first live sport event underway. And it was great to be able to raise as much money for charity and launch a new format. But, the chance that our women could be, the first national sports team to play and play against England, which has become a team that's at the forefront of the women's game in terms of performance. So, the television rights, the viewership, you think for a series like that would be fantastic for all the ladies. So we're working hard on it. We're engaging with the ministry, and hopefully we'll, by the time, that tour comes around, everything will work out.
How are they coping? I mean, in terms of coaching, in terms of training, in terms of keeping the skills up? Because if they're going, I mean, it's a month away. It's around the corner if they do go.
I think through COVID and lockdown, we've our medical staff across the board, we've been meeting probably once a week, engaging on, thinking. I must say the players and the medical staff have been incredible how they've managed to maintain a level of fitness. Obviously, now that we're allowed outdoors, it does help. Getting some more of that fitness and measures in place. The women will have 2 camps at the High Performance Centre in the build-up to the England tour. The first one will be largely sort of medical testing, getting them used to the protocols, that are in place from a COVID perspective, and then some skills work. And then they build up just before the tour. They join again, obviously to follow the same process. And also because of quarantine, they're going to have a nice lengthy period. I think about 14 days, in a bubble, training and preparing for that tour. So I think that the challenges are on these things is how we start to think differently. How many players need to go on tour now? The quarantine periods on either side of a tour, make tours even cricket tours are long, but they make them even longer now. So a lot of new challenges that we're considering and trying to use science and good thinking and debating with people on the right way forward. I think sharing of information is also such a key thing now, and it's been great to work with member bodies around the world. I mean, England are playing international series now, and sharing their thoughts and their experiences with us is going to be key as well.
Talk to me about the business of cricket, because I mean, cricket's had certainly ebbed and flowed. I think it's been quite polite about it over the last 15, 20 years. There have been lots of scandals in cricket. Sponsors have abandoned cricket at various points. What is the status of cricket in the eyes of sponsors? Because there is a very loyal South African cricket base, but is it a cricket base that is attractive enough to those sponsors? What's your feeling on it?
I believe so. I mean, I think what you want as a sports body is that, people are talking about the cricket. And I think far too often, the headlines are made for other reasons. Bad decision making, financial issues, forensic audits. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. And I think when our team is playing well and our women's team is playing well, and there's good stories in the pipeline, the money that gets invested into growing the game and transformation and the development of the game, those are the stories that you want to be making headlines. But I think cricket gets in its own way too often, whether it's people finding themselves in the wrong position at the right time, or bad decision making, egos that get into positions of power. Who knows? But to me, it's just unfortunate. It takes away from the beauty of our sport. It takes away from youngsters looking at us today and saying that's where I want to be and what I want to be a part of. I think we live in a world where, even just doing with our own sport, free agency is such a huge issue. You think about all these T20 leagues. You think about I know Colpack is coming to an end at the end of the year now with Brexit, but the ability to travel and earn money and play cricket in different parts of the world. New Zealand are headhunting our youngsters at a rate of knots, as an example. And then you deal with the world and the opportunities that are out there. It's you've got to be handling your stuff well, and we don't do that.
Yeah, one of the big issues that's pertinent really right now is the issue of Black Lives Matter. And Lungi Ngidi came out and said he's going to take a knee and Black Lives Matter. And some of the old guard in South African cricket came out and went to the All Lives Matter route. You came out very unequivocally on your social media feed on Twitter. You came out and said Black Lives Matter. And that was simple. And then you added to it, as Director of Cricket South Africa, former Protea and captain, a teammate, a father, a brother, a friend, and most importantly, a fellow South African. I am proud to support this incredibly important movement. There's no room for neutrality on this topic. I stand with Lungi Ngidi and our brothers and sisters around the world. I will join the teams in taking the knee at the 3TC Solidarity Cup. It's an unequivocal statement of support, and one in a world that is so polarized that you run the risk of offending an old guard of supporters at a time where you want cohesion and you want to grow the sport, and you want to bring new players and new fans into it. It's an interesting space that you find yourself in.
Bruce, it's been a really challenging experience, if I'm honest with you. I think all of us have found ourselves post in a really, heated space. We've all taken an immense amount of abuse, death threats. It's been I must say, it's been an eye-opening experience. I think for us, it's really about the conversation that happened. Coming together as an organization, especially in where my department as the player body, building into Solidarity Cup. I think firstly that Lungi, in my mind, said nothing wrong. He expressed an opinion. He didn't make a statement. He expressed the fact that the team was going to get together and have a conversation. And no right that he deserved to be attacked. I mean, what happened to him and the way the guys came at him is entirely wrong. And I think within the space, we've handled it extremely maturely. We got together, we listened, the conversation was open, people shared, and we decided to support each other on this movement. And I think, it has shocked me at how much heated things have got after the matter. For me now, the conversation's open. People can listen. People can debate. We can talk to each other. I get that in South Africa we've got so many issues, and in some ways it's felt like we're bearing the brunt for government not having delivered on a number of things, over the years, and the frustration over that. And you pick up the paper and or you click online and you see all the negativity and the disappointment and the frustration in people's lives, and livelihoods being affected. So, yeah, it's been a tough period post that game.
But when you look at the cricket environment in South Africa, and cricket's a really divisive past in terms of race-based policies. I mean, somebody like a Basil D'Oliveira, for example, went off to the United Kingdom and played for England, and then wasn't allowed to tour with the English team to South Africa. And it was during the Forster era, for anybody who doesn't know it. And Forster, who was a big fan of sport, I think he liked cricket too. And he just said, we can't have black people coming and staying in white-only hotels. And England cancelled the tour, and that entered the era of segregation. Somebody like a Basil D'Oliveira could have added so much, of course, to cricket, and many, many other great players. over generations could have added so much. And we sit on such a huge lost opportunity in South Africa. And this is possibly the greatest time in our history to make that right.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not only sports, it's business and life as well. I think there's lost heroes everywhere. And that's why I think it's important to have these conversations and to open that channel, we're growing the game. We want to see the game represent all the people. We want to be successful. And yeah, I'm 100% on your page. Let's get it going. And I think that's what taking a knee meant for us, is that the fact is that we're all together. I haven't seen the team have such an honest conversation in a few years, which is great. The fact that people could share, listen to all sides of the fence, and have an open discussion and come together and, represent not only the BLM movement, but the GBV movement as well, raise 3 million rand for charity. And I think, the message to me that comes out of it is that Citizen of Solidarity campaign that's been running. How do you become a better person? How do you actually affect your environment in a positive way? I think everyone's hanging on to their cause and forgetting about the bigger picture at this stage.
Does cricket get lost in this, or is cricket enhanced by the discussions?
In parts, yes and no. I think what we want is to start having the right voices and the right movements come, to the fore. I think the way the team, Lungi, the players around him, Faf, AB, and all the guys that were part of it on all sides of the fence have handled things, I think is fantastic. And, the messages are good coming out of there. I think, we've got to be able to listen and share in the stories that the other guys are bringing to the fore as well, understand where they're coming from. And, I think the goal for us is to try and find a way to move forward in the right direction and create a better path. That these, sport is also brutal, and that's the challenge. Cricket is brutal. It's a high-performing environment. Your personal performance is always under scrutiny, whether you're a batter, you're a bowler. There's no room. And unfortunately, with sport also you have the element of people that feel begrudged by not getting that opportunity, or not getting enough of a chance. And it's a fine line between the two. I think cricket is such a brutal game when it comes to that there's going to be so many people across the cricketing fraternity who's
how do we make cricket a great unifying force? I mean, we see rugby increasingly is this great unifying force, and it was just you would have enjoyed, I'm sure, the huge success of the Springboks in Japan in 2019, and it was just the most astonishing performance by a team that on paper looked good, but it didn't look like a winning team, and they just gelled and pulled together and worked together so magnificently in that critical final last year. And we have these moments of brilliance. We pull together and we see the possibility of the future. I mean, development, I think you spent last year 380 million rand on cricket development in South Africa. Do you feel that money is paying off? Are you getting the right sort of rewards for the money that is being spent?
Bruce, I don't know. And that's, I guess, in the first 6 or 7 months, what I'm trying to figure out, because it's a massive amount of money, 385 million rand. I mean, I guess there's a lot of facilities being built, and I think the strategy of how we bring people through and grow the game, that's something that we can debate, certainly, because for that amount of money you want to be seeing rewards. I think there's a balance also with government. At what point do government step in and help with the growth of the game, the facilities? I mean, cricket is not a cheap sport. It's not, you can't just pick it up and run around. You need the bats, the balls, the net facilities. We're looking at options of street cricket, for example. Is that a better way to start a culture in informal settlements? You get people the touch points of playing the game, enjoying it. Coming up with their own rules and their own dynamics, where they play. It's something that I've certainly enjoyed in India, experiencing street cricket there. And I think that's something that we can look at and then grow. We've got the KFC mini cricket programs, which is doing great work. And then we've got to work on the pipeline and how we bring through our bursary programs to schools. And, how do we create a format that, allows teams that are not as good or have not as many players to still participate and grow. So I don't know, there's a lot of debates happening. Our goal would be to create heroes like KG Rabada and Mungi Ngidi and Asiya Khaleesi, and see them high performing on a big stage like we saw at the World Cup with the Springboks. And I think if we can do that, create a high performing team where there's no questions around selection, certainly from a political perspective, that people just associate and resonate with what's in front of them, and they want to be a part of that story. That's, I think the goal is now to create and build from the platforms of the Solidarity Cup to work on the culture of certainly my department. I don't think I'll be able to control the whole business or all elements. I think that's an impossibility, but encouraging open conversation, building a culture that represents all of South Africa going forward, and then focusing on the grassroots of how we actually bring people through.
I mean, I was chatting to Gary Kirsten about this last year, and he runs programs in Cape Town townships, and at 7 million rand a pop, looking to develop facilities in townships, because his philosophy there is it's great to see these young kids who've come through the bursary programs, who've gone into cricket schools, traditional cricket schools, whether those be the Rondebosches or the Bishops or whatever they might be, and they get this great leg up and play the game and flourish. But for every one kid who's getting through that system, there are possibly 99 others who fall in, equally talented, who fall in by the wayside. And so he wants to take cricket to communities which have never had the facilities before. And it's a big, bold, noble and audacious.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to know what's happened. I mean, if you go back to readmission back into sport, or the World Cups we've hosted and the facilities that were built over the years, I mean, how do they look now? How have they been maintained, I would be surprised if they haven't been allowed to deteriorate or haven't been looked after. I mean, 385 million rand spent last year on development. I mean, no one can say that Cricket South Africa is not investing. Is it investing smart enough? I don't know. There's so many systems in place, and it's great to have people like Gary that are finding their own little way in helping to grow the game. And maybe that needs to be a part of our strategy in terms of who we put the money behind. They then focus on the communities, or we go to corporates and they then, really can focus on the areas instead of Cricket South Africa trying to manage this whole big mothership all the time. It can be challenging. But the goal is to take it to the communities, to see people coming through, and for that to be a successful story.
How do we get people to love cricket? I mean, winning a World Cup would help. But I mean, and I've not seen the Indian cricket culture personally, but you talk to somebody like John T. Rhodes, who feels more famous in India than he does at home. And he just gets this beams with pride, and he talks with passion about just how kids will pick up a stick and a ball or a stick and a rock or whatever it might be and play the game. I mean, I don't know if we can ever get to that level of love and enthusiasm. It's a deep cultural preset in India.
I'd be surprised if we ever reach that level. I mean, when people say cricket is a religion in India, it certainly is. Every channel, radio station. I spend an extensive amount of time in India. Still, it's every time I go back there, it surprises me. Their level of love for the game, their heroes. The BCCI is an extremely wealthy organization as well. The broadcast rights, the support they get from sponsors just puts them at a level, I guess, that not many other member bodies can compete with. And I think there is love for cricket, Bruce. I think there really is. I think sometimes all the rubbish that we read and hear blurs the lines. I watched at the end of the summer us play 3 T20s against England and a couple against Australia that had the incredibly vibrant, close games, diverse crowds, and there was a love for cricket. I think at the moment, all this other stuff now has been in the media consistently, from the forensic audits to the disciplinaries and, all the stuff that we don't want in the media. Instead of telling the right stories out there, we daily, we get an email every day of a daily media report, and it's few and far between trying to find the positive story. And I guess in my position, I try and stay focused on, not to get caught up too much in all the emotion. I understand what's going on, but how do I get us out of this period from what can I control? That's the team performances. It's the pipeline. It's, getting cricket back on the map and getting this stuff to hopefully fade away in the background.
Well, I guess in a world where the game isn't being played, the politics is going to be focused on because there isn't anything else to report on. So guys are looking for stories and are going to find those stories. When you look at the future of cricket, South African cricket in particular, the way in which this game needs to grow, the way it needs to become more inclusive, the way it needs financial support, the sponsorships, the backing, the desire, I'm sure, to host World Cups into the future. We've got a T20 coming, as you said, in 2022. Huge opportunity for revenue into the future. When you talk to sponsors, what are they feeling about cricket?
Well, the commercial department is not my responsibility. Thank you, but I do find myself being pulled into one or two conversations across the board. It is a tough place. I mean, not only because of how Cricket South Africa finds themselves as an organization, but COVID has hit corporates and businesses extensively as well. The money that they would have to spend on a sponsorship like this. I mean, we've seen ABSA pull out the PSL. Standard Bank have given up their sponsorship of Cricket South Africa. So finding people that have the money to spend, and most organizations are saying, well, I've got to look after my bottom line and my staff and at the moment. So it is very challenging. And that's why, you want to be putting out the right stories. You want to have, cricket being spoken about. People want to be, that people that want to be associated with your brand are proud to be there. That's what we've got to create. And as an organization over the last 6 to 8 months, well, even before that, I mean, the stories are still running from December. I mean,
sure.
That's all.
You've got to clean up the game, haven't you? I mean, you've got to clean up the game.
You're 100% right. And, get our team playing well and winning a T20 World Cup and then going on to win a World Cup and seeing our ladies be successful, in England and various other places. Once those conversations start to have and we create the fanfare through the team's performances, in general, we're getting it right down the pipeline. It's never going to be perfect. It's too big a wheel to get right all the time. But let's get that story going.
Talk to me about the formats of the game. I mean, T20 is just the most vibrant and exciting innovation in cricket since the beginning, since W.G. Grace, played at Lord's. So the T20 format is really popular. It gets big crowds. It gets huge commercial support. It's got a great vibe to it. One-day games, hit and miss a little bit. The 5-day test feels like it's actually making a bit of a comeback. It's the stuff of strategy and excitement over a long period of time. It's not dead, is it? I don't think it is.
It's challenged, certainly. The 5-day game, when you have two good nations or two good teams playing against each other, I mean, it's enthralling, and I think if you asked any cricketer, that's where you be judged, on your performances. It's the hardest version of the game. It tests you mentally, physically, your technique, everything is, on show. And it's where we all kind of want to be judged. But, T20 has come in, it's brought the commercial aspect to the game. It's also brought its challenges, because these T20 leagues are popping up all over the world now. You think about the IPL, the financial gains that both players and owners have got. The TV right deals have done there is a couple of billion over a few years dollars. And it's having been to India and I work with Star and I commentate on it now and I've played in it and won an IPL. You just cannot imagine how massive that beast is and also what it's done for players. Players will earn more in that tournament than they probably would playing for South Africa. And that creates its challenge. But I mean, T20 has brought youngsters into the game. It's kept us afloat as a sport in modern day society. One-day cricket for me. I think there's too many slow patches in it at the moment, and that's one of the reasons why we debated this 3-team cricket and came up with a new version of the game. How could we take away some of those dead spots in the game, make it exciting, get 3 sets of fans in a stadium, 3 teams playing on a day, trying to keep it interesting, exciting, talking points all the time, and then also take that down the pipeline where we can engage maybe a Cares and a Pretoria Boys High playing with Soweto High and introduce them into the game, and those are all the conversations that we've had during lockdown. And, hopefully in 3-team cricket, we can get it going. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I've touched on it. I hope that Test cricket stays strong, but, I think it might become a certain nation based in the future.
And then are there any big sort of rule changes that we need? I mean, Nick Mallett, we were talking about rugby, and he's incredibly impassioned about rugby, as you know. And, rugby is, there's so many tweaks and things that are happening all the time. Cricket seems to be fairly stuck in its ways in terms of the rules. But that Duckworth and Lewis fellas, those two guys have caused more pain to more cricket supporters in the world than administrators have over generations. Surely if there's one thing in cricket that can change, there's got to be a better sum that can be done at the end of a long day of rained-out cricket.
Totally agree. I think Duckworth Lewis has had its time, and I think the game has moved past it. The scores and the way people think and what's achievable now it needs to be reviewed, especially in the T20 game. I think, there's just too many times you look at it and you go, that's not right. It's too easy for the team chasing, or it hasn't quite got the thinking and the modern day nature of how cricket is played now. Duckworth Lewis is left in the 90s or the early 2000s. And we need some of you sharp people at PSG to come up with something to improve it. So I think that's certainly an element. I think cricket can get complicated. It's a technical sport. And I think sometimes keeping the rules as simple as possible can benefit the sport. You try and introduce someone new to the game of cricket, and it's like, whoa, okay, what? You've got a lot of technicalities. I was trying to explain to my wife the Lbw Rule the other day, and I was headbutting the wall. So it is a complicated sport, and if you haven't grown up with it, or you haven't played it at school, or been around it, it takes time to understand it. So I think in general, keeping the rules simple for fans is a good thing.
Explain the Lbw Rule. Go on.
Well, firstly, it's leg before wicket.
I think it's enough. enough. We get it. If your leg is before the wicket, we haven't got time. This is the Think Big series, right? So, what's cricket's Think Big? What is the big thing that cricket needs to do in South Africa to get back into the public imagination, into the sponsors' imagination, into the fans' imagination, into kids' imagination, so that kids who got choices, games to play, choose this great game as their sport of preference?
Bruce, it's not going to come from an administrator. Let me tell you that. Anyone in the business side of sport needs to get that right, and to make sure that the money flow into the game, that we can invest in the grassroots. That's important. But the only way we're going to get that going is if our national teams, are representative of the country, are high performing on both the women and the men's side. The heroes are coming through. Our team's winning big series, big games. There's great stories to tell. They connected to the fans also as well, by the result on the weekend. So, that's kind of, I think, what cricket needs to do. Get playing again, get our teams performing well, and connect with the fans. With COVID, we might need to find new channels of doing that, because television, most products are going to be television based for now. So I think that's the way. We've got to get our teams going.
But they can only do that once the administrators disappear into the background and do what they're supposed to do, and administrate and do the boring stuff behind the scenes that isn't the story. Because for so long, the administration has been the story. And I suppose that's got to be the big challenge in this lockdown time, is the opportunity to fix that.
Yeah, and leadership is required, because, at board level, I'm at operational level. At board level, they sit with a lot of those decisions that can provide the direction, and I think kind of sometimes you sit and you think, please just get it done, get it right, so we can all progress, So I'm hoping that over the next couple of months that takes shape. And we all have a clear direction of how we can get to the point that you've mentioned consistently, get cricket back into the hearts and minds of certainly South Africans and fans around the world, and get our players, being the storylines and the headlines and the celebrated ones. I think that's key.
Graeme Smith, thank you very, very much for thinking big with PSG today. Brett Lambert, back to you.
Bruce, thank you for hosting the discussion today. And to you, Graeme, thank you for your independent and very honest insights. You most certainly have given us a lot of food for thought. As a fervent supporter, the future of cricket in South Africa interests me personally, as I'm sure it does for many of our clients and the broader potential client base out there. Just listening to you talk, I think in many ways, the approach to cricket can be equated to the approach to investment management. While each country participating in a cricket match dreams of victory and holding up a trophy, becoming a champion isn't that simple. I think we've learned that it depends on a lot more than just having the best players in your team. Player selection, game strategy, and team dynamics all play major roles in the eventual outcome. The overall PSG wealth game plan is to achieve consistent above average returns at lower levels of risk and to be competitively priced in the market so that we deliver value to our clients. Getting there requires a multifaceted approach that is designed to constantly keep our eye on the ball. I think a successful cricket team has a team of specialists supporting them who each focus on helping players hone the skills suited to their particular disciplines. At PSG, we have a team of skilled professionals who are experts at considering the bigger picture when it comes to investing. We understand that it's not just about each individual player's ability, but also about how they perform together as a team. Each game requires a tailored approach. Cricket funnies will tell you every game requires its own specific strategy. Depending on the opposition, you're likely to be playing on that day. Similarly, in considering your investment strategy, you need a tailored investment approach depending on your unique circumstances and needs. PSG Wealth offers you a range of expertly managed investment solutions to choose from, each suited to a different investment horizon and risk appetite, and aiming to achieve a different investment outcome. So when you're heading into an important game, you most certainly want experts on your side. To those of you that are PSG clients, we thank you for your support and we look forward to your continued support going forward. And for those of you that aren't yet clients of PSGs, we would welcome the opportunity of introducing you to one of our financial advisors, either in our wealth or insure divisions. They're exceptionally well equipped to analyze your needs and advise you across your financial and insurance portfolios. If you'd like to get in touch with an advisor, please get in touch with us via this event's registration platform. We welcome your feedback. Please communicate with us and join us in our future Think Big series webinars, where we'll be talking to experts like Dr. Leila Farid from the JSC, Professor Glenda Gray, and Estienne de Klerk on the future of the commercial property sector. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for participating in this event. Stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye-bye for now.